Ever since I discussed about traditional file processing and database management systems, we're going to do a little comparative analysis between the two. Now we're going to be looking through some scenarios where it is appropriate to use traditional file processing and DBMS. We're going to look through first, we're going to be looking at database management systems first. The first one is banking systems, which are requiring secure transaction and multi-user consistency, which when you can see like any banking company like Chase or anything like PNC, any US bank, any of those, this is very important since it's requiring multiple transactions of any data of anyone's user, just going through the whole system and just getting any numbers, or even just trying to get multi-user consistency, where anyone can access the data, but only the data that they want to make in public. The second scenario is basically where enterprise resource planning, where many departments share integrated data, which is kind of simple. They just share whatever data they want to the public and they keep their private data to themselves. Now we're moving on to some scenarios which are well fitted for traditional file processing, aka TFP. Now, first one, we have embedded systems with small fixed data sets, which basically, when I went through my other video explaining about TFP, I basically said how we don't want small clunks of data, or else it'll just pile on and make it slower. It's basically anything small and fixed data sets, it'll make any traditional file processing more faster and more efficient. Then next we have the temporary data logging for short-term processing, which basically, yet again, my other video where I explained how anything short or small, any smaller size or shorter size data inside files, it will be more efficient and quicker to process or even try to render or even send out the data through those files. Now I'm going to be talking about the performative considerations basically between DBMS and TFP. Basically, on the large scale, a DBMS uses indexing, caching, and query optimization to deduct search time and disk access, so it will be very helpful for you to find any of these files or data basically located in your computer or storage, so you won't have a hard time finding them. But with TFP, basically it's more supportive in parallel execution and efficient filtering, and TFP is basically processing often requiring scanning the entire files, but it gets slower every time the data grows, which basically, like I said in my TFP video, which I explained, where the smaller the amount of size of the data that you have, the more faster it gets. But over time, if you pile up this data, doesn't matter like the longevity, but it matters when the data grows, the whole scanning process gets slower and slower over time. Then for the third consideration, basically it's where the DBMS overhead can introduce latency, which basically delays some of the simple operations while file processing is in the middle of doing its own thing. But it may be faster for it in the single source system, since this latency of the overhead can occur when this file processing operation is going on, which basically this refers to the additional stuff that happens in there, like CPU, memory, disk, that are required to manage and maintain while the file processing is happening and the overhead are clashing together, which causes this huge latency around the whole system, which slows almost everything down except for this file processing. Basically, this whole video was about all of the comparisons between DBMS and then TFP using real world scenarios suitable with the usage of DBMS and TFP. I just forgot to write it down here. Which, yeah, basically where DBMS is basically used in like more banking systems like Chase and PNC and US Bank, while TFP is mostly used for scanning these datas and mostly locating all of these datas and putting them in separate files so it won't be lost. And then for the second part was the performance comparison, which basically compared on what either thing focused on, which basically DBMS is more focused on basically the security and mostly the overall additional resources, while TFP is mostly focused on data being processed and just locating them. Then the proper usage when to use DBMS for file processing, which when's the time to use all this stuff that is going on and when and how it should be used. Well, thank you for watching and I hope you have a good day. Bye.